Hello everybody, welcome to the video. Today this is going to be part 2 on graphing parabolas in general form. So please make sure to watch part 1 before you guys watch this video. So today we're going to go over 2 examples of graphing these parabolas, beginning with this one. So we're asked to graph this parabola x squared minus 10x plus y plus 21 equals 0. So as you all learned in my last video, the first thing that you have to do is get y by itself. And we do that by subtracting all the x terms and the constant on both sides of the equation. So then we end up getting y equals negative x squared plus 10x minus 21. Now what's important to note here is that at this point when we have to complete the square, the coefficient of x squared needs to be 1, otherwise completing the square doesn't work. So notice here that the coefficient of x squared is actually negative 1. So what we actually have to do is we have to factor it out in order for us to successfully complete the square, okay? Excuse me. So that's what this looks like. We take the negative 1 right here, we factor it out from these two terms. So we factor it out of the x squared right here, and we factor it out of the 10x, and then we get negative 10x right here. And notice that when you distribute the negative to both of these, you get the original equation, okay? So we factored out a negative 1 from the first two terms. Now inside this parentheses, the coefficient of x squared is 1, so we can complete the square. And we do that by taking b, dividing by 2 and squaring it, and that number is 25. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 25 right here. Now you might think that we need to subtract 25 here, but the reality is, even though this says plus 25, this is not a positive 25 right here, because it's being multiplied by this negative 1. So this thing in red is really a negative 25. So in order to cancel out that negative 25, what we need to do is we need to add it right here, because this, again, this was really a negative 25. So that's why this is a plus and not a minus 25, because we have to cancel it out, okay? So then what we need to do is factor this trinomial, add up the two numbers right there, and then we'll get this parabola in vertex form, just like we did in the first video. So this trinomial factors into x minus 5 squared plus 4. And so I'm going to put it up here so that I can graph it with the vertex and with the 5 points. So the vertex is going to be at 5, 4. And so we can go ahead and plot that point. And we can also make our table right here. We can include a consecutive x values. We can plug in 6 and 7 right here to get the y values. When we do that and evaluate, we get that that's equal to 3 and 0, okay? So then we can use symmetry to find these y values right here when x is equal to 3 and 4. And then once we have our points, just like we did in the last video, we plot the points and we make our parabola, okay? So sort of the new thing here for this lesson is you have to realize that if the trinomial is, if the coefficient of x squared is not 1, you have to factor it out, okay? You have to factor it out. Okay guys, so let's go over one more example here to make sure you guys got it. So here we're asked to graph this parabola, 2x squared minus 8x plus y plus 10 equals 0. So we're going to follow the same steps here. We're going to subtract all the x terms and the constant from both sides of the equation, leaving you with y by itself here. So we have y equals negative 2x squared plus 8x minus 10, okay? So as I mentioned earlier, because the coefficient of x squared is not 1, we have to factor it out. So we do that right here. We factor out a negative 2 from the first two terms. And this is going to be, this number in red is going to be negative 4, because this 8 divided by negative 2 would be negative 4, okay? So also notice that when you distribute the negative 2 to both of these, you get the original equation, so it hasn't changed. We've just factored out the negative 2 so that we can complete the square. So that's why this is negative 4 right here, because 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. All right? So once we have that trinomial here where a is 1, okay, what we're going to do is complete the square. So we do negative 4 divided by 2 is 4. So we add the 4 right there. But again, guys, we don't subtract 4 right here because this isn't really a 4, okay? It's being multiplied by negative 2. So that's actually going to end up being -8, okay? And in order to cancel out a -8, what we need to do is we need to add 8 to balance out the equation, okay? So you see sometimes the number here is going to be different than the number inside the parentheses because that number inside the parentheses is being multiplied by another number, okay? Okay, so once we have that, we have got to factor the trinomial and add up the numbers. So the trinomial x squared minus 4x plus 4 simplifies to x minus 2 quantity squared, and -10 plus 8 gives you -2, and so we have it in vertex form. We can put it up here. The vertex of this parabola is going to be 2, -2, so we can plot that point right there, 2, -2. We can make our table, include consecutive values, plug in the values x equals 3, x equals 4 into our equation, and we get -4 and -10. We use symmetry to get the other two values. We plot the points just like this, and we connect it with a smooth curve. So that's how to graph the two parabolas there when it is in general form.